All right, get ready because today we're going to be looking into these psychic soulmate drawings.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know those sketches that people say can like show you what your future love looks like?
Yeah.
I know it sounds a little out there, but that's what we're all about here.
Yeah.
We're going to explore the stories, the evidence, and maybe even find a few surprises on the way.
For sure.
Yeah. So what do you think is so interesting about this whole soulmate drawing thing?
Well, I think for me, what's really fascinating is how it just, taps into that like universal desire
Jeez.
for connection.
It does.
Whether you're like, a total romantic or you're like super skeptical and practical,
Yeah.
there's something about the idea of someone somewhere being able to sketch out
Yeah.
the face of your soulmate that's just so intriguing.
It is, and we've got some pretty wild stories today
Okay, yeah.
about people who are like totally skeptical,
Right.
and then bam, life throws them a curveball.
Wow.
And it's someone who looks just like their soulmate drawing.
No way.
Yeah, and we'll also, unpack some of the like science and psychology behind
Right.
these seemingly impossible connections.
Yeah.
So, looking at things like intuition and how powerful our subconscious can be.
Exactly. Because, even if you come into this whole thing
Yeah.
with a healthy dose of skepticism,
Mm-hmm.
there are some seriously fascinating psychological principles at play here
Totally.
that could teach us a lot about how our minds work,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to, love and attraction.
For sure. All right, let's start with Emma's story.
Yeah.
She was a school teacher, very down to earth,
Okay.
not really into the whole psychic thing.
Right.
But she went to a psychic fair with a friend and thought, why not get a soulmate drawing?
Uh-huh.
She even laughed when she saw it
Really?
because the guy in the drawing had this really specific detail.
Oh.
A scar right above his eyebrow.
Huh. It's almost like that specific detail,
Yeah.
that little quirk, like planted a seed in
Yeah.
her subconscious. Our brains are really good at recognizing patterns,
Right.
even when we don't realize it.
So maybe the psychic wasn't actually seeing the future.
Right.
But instead, like, tapping into some kind of deeply ingrained preference that Emma already had.
Yeah.
Like, without her even realizing it, she was drawn to that specific feature.
It's definitely possible. Yeah. And this is where the idea of pattern recognition comes in.
Okay.
Our brains are constantly looking for patterns, trying to make sense of everything around us.
Right.
We might not even be aware of these patterns, but they can totally influence our choices
Oh, wow.
and perceptions in these like subtle ways.
Okay, that's already kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
So what happens with Emma? Does she actually meet someone with the scar?
Fast forward a few months, and Emma's volunteering at this community garden.
Okay.
And who does she meet?
Yeah.
A guy named Marcus
Uh-huh.
with, you guessed it,
No way.
the exact same scar above his eyebrow.
What? So she meets this guy. What happens next? Like, is it instant fireworks?
Well, maybe not Easton fireworks,
Yeah.
but there was definitely like a spark.
Okay.
They started talking,
Uh-huh.
realized they had tons in common,
Right.
and eventually started dating.
Wow.
And now Emma is like totally convinced
Yeah.
that she wouldn't have even noticed Marcus if she hadn't gotten that drawing.
Really?
It's like it primed her to be more aware of that specific feature, making her more likely to notice him in a crowd.
So you're saying that even if the psychic wasn't actually seeing Emma's future husband,
Right.
the drawing itself like influenced her behavior
Yeah.
and led her to her soulmate.
Exactly. It's a really fascinating example
Yeah.
of how our beliefs and expectations can actually shape our reality.
Wow.
And it's not just soulmate drawings.
Great.
This applies to like all areas of life.
Uh-huh.
If we believe something is possible, we're way more likely to see opportunities
Yeah.
and take actions that match that belief.
So our brains are like playing tricks on us, making us see what we want to see.
Well, not necessarily tricks.
Okay.
It's more like our brains are just super powerful filters,
Right.
constantly sorting through information,
Uh-huh.
highlighting the things that are relevant to what we want and what we desire.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all connects.
Yeah,
It's like there's this subconscious matchmaking system
Exactly.
happening in our brain.
and it gets even more interesting
Okay.
when you think about the concept of self-fulfilling prophecies.
All right, let's break that down. What are self-fulfilling prophecies and
Yeah.
how do they relate to soulmate drawings?
So a self-fulfilling prophecy is basically
Yeah.
when a belief or expectation you have leads to actions that end up causing that belief to come true.
Okay, so in the context of soulmate drawings, you're saying
Yeah.
that if you believe you're meant to meet someone who looks a certain way,
Right.
you might subconsciously act in ways that make that encounter more likely to happen.
Exactly. Let's take Michael's story, for example.
Okay.
He was this successful finance guy
Okay.
living in New York City,
Right.
but he felt super lonely.
Ah.
He decided to get a soulmate drawing and got a sketch of a woman
Okay.
with curly hair, distinctive glasses,
Okay.
worked in a creative field,
All right.
and lived near water.
So pretty specific details.
Yeah.
Did he find her in the concrete jungle of New York City?
Well, not exactly he found her,
Okay.
but not until like a couple of years later
Oh.
when his job took him to San Francisco.
Okay.
He met Sophia, a graphic designer with, of course, curly hair,
Uh-huh.
vintage glasses,
Wow.
and even a tiny butterfly tattoo on her wrist.
Wait, a butterfly tattoo? That's
Yeah.
crazy specific.
I know, right? It makes you wonder.
What are the chances?
Right. But even without the tattoo, think about all the people Michael could have met in New York City.
It's a lot of people.
Like a lot. Those
Really?
seemingly basic details.
Mhm.
Curly hair, glasses, creative field. They actually narrowed down the possibilities by a lot.
That's true. I see what you mean. It's like the drawing was like a filter
Mm-hmm.
guiding him towards a specific type of person,
Right.
even if it was subconsciously.
Exactly.
So he moves to San Francisco, meets Sophia,
Yeah.
and then what was he immediately convinced she was his soulmate?
Not quite.
Okay.
They met at a networking event, hit it off,
Yeah.
and started dating like any other couple.
Okay.
But Michael admitted that the drawing was always in the back of his mind.
Yeah.
He couldn't deny that uncanny resemblance.
Right.
And it definitely made him more open to the possibility that Sophia could be the one.
Okay, so the drawing might have planted a seed of expectation,
Yeah.
making him more likely to see Sophia as his soulmate.
Uh-huh.
But couldn't it have just been a coincidence?
Of course, coincidence is always possible.
Right.
But that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating.
Yeah.
It blurs the lines between fate chance and the power of our own minds.
I am definitely feeling those blurred lines right now.
Yeah.
This is getting deep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about pattern recognition and self-fulfilling prophecies.
Right.
But what about the psychics themselves?
Yeah.
Are they really tapping into some mystical force?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a more rational explanation for their abilities?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Let's bring in some experts on this and see what they have to say.
Sounds good. So we've got these incredible stories.
Right.
And now I'm like dying to know what the experts have to say
Yeah.
about this whole psychic side of things. Like,
Yeah.
is there any actual science behind what they do?
Well, we talked to Dr. Eliza Chen.
Okay.
She's a researcher who specializes in intuition
Uh-huh.
and decision-making.
Interesting.
And her work suggests that what we often think of as psychic ability
Yeah.
might actually just be a really advanced form
Okay.
of subconscious pattern recognition.
So instead of seeing the future,
Right.
these psychics are maybe just like really good at picking up on subtle cues
Uh-huh.
and connecting the dots in ways that most people wouldn't even notice.
Exactly. Dr. Chen believes that our subconscious minds are always taking in information,
Okay.
processing it,
Right,
and
yeah.
making these connections
Uh-huh.
that we're not even aware of.
So it's like having a supercomputer running in the background,
Yeah.
analyzing data and making predictions
Exactly.
based on patterns and probabilities.
Yeah, and it's all happening without us even realizing it.
Wow. So maybe these psychics are tapping into that subconscious supercomputer,
It's possible.
processing information that's already there,
Right.
but hidden from our conscious awareness.
It's a fascinating idea, right?
It is.
And it could explain how some psychics seem to know things about their clients
yeah.
that they couldn't have possibly known through normal means.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could all fit together.
Yeah.
But what about the drawings themselves? If it's
Yeah.
all subconscious pattern recognition, how do they create these sketches?
Yeah,
That sometimes turn out to be so accurate.
that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Dr. Chen suggests that psychics might be really good at reading their clients' subtle cues.
Like what kind of cues?
Things like body language,
Uh-huh.
facial expressions,
Okay.
even the way they phrase their questions.
So they take all that information and then
Yes.
project it onto the page in the form of a drawing.
Exactly like they're creating a visual representation
Oh,
of their
yeah.
client's subconscious desires and expectations.
Even if the client themselves isn't fully aware of those desires.
Exactly. And once that image is out there in the
Mhm.
form of a drawing,
Yeah.
it can actually start to influence the client's behavior,
Really?
leading them to seek out or be more open to people who fit that description.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in action.
Precisely.
Okay, this is kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah.
It's like the drawing becomes a blueprint
Right.
for their future relationship,
Well,
even if it wasn't consciously intended that way.
exactly. And this brings us back to the power of belief.
Okay.
Whether or not you believe in psychic abilities,
Right.
there's no denying the power of belief itself.
Uh-huh.
If you believe that you're meant to meet someone special,
Yeah.
you might be more likely to put yourself out there,
Right.
go on dates,
Yeah.
and take a chance on love.
Okay. I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
But what about the people who say they met their soulmate
Okay.
before they ever got a soulmate drawing?
Yeah.
Like they met someone, fell in love,
Uh-huh.
and then later got a drawing that looked like their partner.
Right.
How do we explain those cases?
Those are interesting cases for sure.
Yeah,
And they definitely add another layer of complexity to this whole conversation.
they do.
It's possible that in those situations,
Yeah.
the drawing just acted as a validation
Okay.
of a connection that already existed.
So the person was already deeply connected to their partner on a subconscious level,
Uh-huh.
and the drawing just mirrored that connection back to them.
Exactly. It's like seeing a reflection of your own subconscious knowing.
Okay, that makes sense, but there's this one story that still has me completely baffled.
Which one?
The one where both people in the relationship
Okay.
got soulmate drawings of each other.
Right.
How is that even possible?
A story of James and Vivian.
Yeah,
This one really pushes the limits of coincidence, doesn't it?
it does.
Just to recap, James got a soulmate drawing as a gag gift,
Mm-hmm.
tucked it away and forgot about it.
Okay.
A year later, he meets Vivian while working on a project.
Right.
She's the client's interior designer,
Uh-huh.
and she looks exactly like the woman in his drawing.
It's already a pretty wild coincidence.
Yeah.
But then you add the fact that Vivian had also gotten a soulmate drawing a few years earlier.
No, right?
And it looked like it's like the universe was playing matchmaker or something.
It's tempting to think that, isn't it?
It is.
But before we jump to that conclusion,
Okay.
let's consider another psychological principle that might be at play here.
What's that?
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
But remind me what it is again.
Basically, confirmation bias is our tendency to look for,
Okay.
interpret favor, and remember information
Uh-huh.
in a way that confirms what we already believe.
So you're suggesting that once James met Vivian and saw a resemblance to the drawing,
Right.
his brain might have just focused on the similarities
Yeah.
and ignored any differences.
Exactly. Like maybe her nose was a little different.
Okay.
Or her eyes were a slightly different shade.
Yeah.
But he didn't really notice those things
Right.
because his mind was already primed to see her
Uh-huh.
as the woman in the drawing.
That's exactly what confirmation bias suggests.
And the same could be true for Vivian.
Mm-hmm.
If she had a drawing that looked like James,
Mm-hmm.
she might have been subconsciously drawn to him,
Right.
even if they wouldn't have normally connected.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yeah.
drawings created this powerful expectation. And their brains filled in the blanks, highlighting the similarities and downplaying the differences.
Precisely. It's a fascinating example
It is.
of how our perceptions can be influenced by what we already believe.
This is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about love and destiny.
Yeah.
So if confirmation bias can explain the double soulmate drawing mystery,
Right.
what about all the other stories?
Yeah.
Could confirmation bias be playing a role in those cases too?
It's definitely a possibility worth considering.
Okay.
And remember, confirmation bias isn't about being intentionally dishonest.
Right.
It's a subconscious process that affects how we see and understand information.
So someone might genuinely believe they found their soulmate based on a drawing, even if their perception was swayed by confirmation bias?
Exactly. It doesn't mean their feelings aren't real
Okay.
or that the connection isn't genuine.
All right.
It just means that their perception might have been shaped by their prior beliefs and expectations.
Okay, so where do we go from here? If confirmation bias can make things so unclear,
Right.
how do we even start to figure out if these soulmate drawings are legit?
Yeah.
Do we just toss out all the stories?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
While it's important to be aware of confirmation bias
Wow.
and other psychological factors
Yeah.
that can influence what we see and experience,
Right.
it doesn't mean we should just dismiss all the anecdotal evidence
Okay.
or personal experiences that people share.
So you're saying there's still room for mystery and wonder,
Absolutely.
even when we have scientific explanations.
Human experience is complex
Right.
and multifaceted.
Yeah.
We can appreciate the power of science and psychology
Uh-huh.
while also acknowledging that there might be things about reality that we don't fully understand yet.
I like that perspective.
Yeah.
It lets us stay open-minded without throwing out critical thinking.
Exactly.
But in the end, it seems like whether or not you believe these drawings have any real power comes down to personal belief.
That's a key takeaway here.
Yeah.
Whether you choose to believe in the mystical side of soulmate drawings or see them from a more scientific perspective, the power of belief itself can be a huge force in shaping our lives and relationships.
It's like that saying.
What is it?
Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Oh, yeah.
If you believe you can find love, you're more likely to put yourself out there and make it happen.
Exactly. And this brings us to another fascinating perspective. From Dr. Martin Reynolds. He's a psychologist who specializes in relationships. He suggests that regardless of whether or not these drawings have any supernatural validity, they can still be a really powerful tool for personal growth.
In what way?
Dr. Reynolds believes that these drawings can give people hope and a sense of optimism, especially for those who have been hurt or disappointed in love.
I can see that. It's like having this tangible reminder that there's someone special out there waiting for you.
Exactly. And that sense of hope and optimism can be incredibly powerful. It can motivate us to put ourselves out there, try new things, and be more open to the possibility of finding love.
This is all so thought-provoking.
It is.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this fascinating topic.
The deep one.
We've explored the stories, delved into the psychology, and even considered the science behind intuition and psychic abilities.
And we've learned that even if we can't definitively prove or disprove the existence of psychic soulmate drawings, the exploration itself can be incredibly valuable.
For sure.
Challenges our assumptions, broadens our understanding of the human mind, and reminds us of the power of belief and expectation.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up,
I
want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the emotional side of soulmate drawings. You said they can offer hope and comfort, especially for people who are feeling lost or lonely.
That's right. For some people, these drawings provide a sense of comfort and reassurance, knowing that there's someone out there who's meant for them.
It's like a little beacon of hope in the sometimes scary world of dating and relationships.
Exactly. And even if the drawing itself isn't magically leading you to your soulmate, the belief that it might can have a huge impact on your mindset and behavior.
So it's not just about the drawing itself. But the feeling it evokes, the hope it inspires.
Precisely. And that feeling, that hope, can be a catalyst for positive change in our lives.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about the stories, the science, the psychology, and even the emotional impact of these drawings. But now I'm really curious to hear what our listeners think.
That's the perfect time to open up the conversation and invite our listeners to share their thoughts, experiences, and maybe even some of their own soulmate drawing stories.
All right, so we've really explored this whole world of soulmate drawings.
I have.
Heard some pretty amazing stories.
Yeah, some wild ones.
And even dove into the science and psychology behind it all.
All the different angles.
But now we want to hear from you,
Yeah.
our listeners.
What do you think?
Do you believe in the power of these drawings?
Like, can they really reveal your soulmate?
Or are you leaning more towards those scientific explanations we talked about?
Maybe you think it's more about the brain and how it works.
Yeah, maybe you've had your own experience with a soulmate drawing.
Oh, that would be cool.
Or maybe you know someone who has.
Yeah. Or maybe you're just curious about the whole thing.
And have some thoughts or questions.
Exactly. We want to hear it all.
We really do share your thoughts on our social media.
Yeah, come find us online.
Or even just start a conversation with your friends.
That's a great idea.
You know, when I started this deep dive, I had my own ideas about soulmate drawings. But after hearing all these stories...
and all the different perspectives.
And learning about intuition and how our minds work...
It really makes you...
I've realized there's way more to this topic than I ever imagined.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
It is.
There's always something more to discover.
I totally agree. It's this fascinating mix of mystery and science.
And that human need for connection.
And while we might never have all the answers,
who knows?
just exploring this topic could be really enriching.
It is. It really is.
It's made me think differently about love and destiny and how much power our own minds have.
Absolutely. Our minds are incredible.
And at the end of the day, isn't that what a good deep dive is all about?
I think so.
It's not about finding all the answers,
right,
but expanding how we see things.
Yeah.
And sparking conversations that matter.
I love that.
So whether you're a believer or a skeptic,
or somewhere in between,
we hope this episode has given you something to think about.
Yeah, something to chew on.
And maybe, just maybe, it's inspired you to be more open.
Open to what?
To the unexpected turns that life and love can take.
I like that. Be open to the unexpected.
That's it for our deep dive into soulmate drawings.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep your minds open.
Yes.
Your hearts curious.
And don't forget.
And remember, the most important connection you'll ever make
is
the one with yourself.
That's a good one.
Take care, everyone.